All right, let's get into the interview with John Linnell. So you're in Scotland. Are you enjoying the scene, or are you doing a bunch of work? Maybe just relaxing a little?
No, I'm trying to. Well, you spoke to Flansburgh today, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So he probably filled you in on our recent activities. We came from Australia back to the States a week ago, and that for me is kind of a pretty intense recovery in terms of the time difference.
Yeah.
And then I figured I'd come here a little early just to acclimate to the UK time, to give myself a little bit of time. So basically, I've just been trying to sleep normal hours, and it's a real struggle.
Oh, I can't imagine. Yeah. Are you getting some success?
Yeah, I'm definitely closer to being on track. I'm sleeping at night mostly, and I'm the thing was, coming back from Australia, is that I was having these sort of narcoleptic episodes, just in the middle of the day, just suddenly just fall asleep in mid-sentence,
Not during a show, though, I can't imagine. Yeah.
Not during the show, no. That seems to keep me awake. And in fact, yeah, that's the ultimate safety, valve, is that even if I'm exhausted and can't think straight, the show tends to wake me up. So
yeah.
So, but other than that, I really have to be ready to just need a nap at a moment's notice. Although, as I said, I'm doing a lot better now. I'm in I have a little apartment here in Scotland. So that's very nice. It's pleasant to be here.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for taking time out of because you guys are so busy. We really appreciate whatever time that you can give us for the big day. But
always a pleasure.
Yeah, this is year 11 that we've been doing it, and I think you guys have been chatting with us for most of that time. So, yeah, we always look forward to it. We do have some questions from some listeners. We don't have that many this time around because we kind of had a short notice to get the word out, which is
right.
We thank everybody that did have questions, but do you mind if we just shoot some questions your way?
No, please, let's do it. Yeah, that's great.
Okay. Do you want to go first, Tim?
Okay, let's see here. This is from Kim in Florida. I am a high school English teacher who happened to be reading A Modest Proposal with my class when book came out, and the Who Ate the Babies lyric has made me wonder ever since. Was A Modest Proposal in your mind at all when you came up with it?
No, it wasn't, but I know about that. That's a Jonathan Swift essay, right? Where he's saying outrageous. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that.
I'm not, actually.
Okay, yeah. That's something, it's kind of lit 101 thing. Is that Jonathan? I believe it's Jonathan Swift. Modest Proposal, and yeah, there's something in there about eating babies, I believe. But I know of it, but I wasn't specifically thinking about it when I was writing the song.
What were you thinking about, if we can ask?
Good question. Yeah. What the hell? I mean, it's a mysterious process, the creative process. It's not always clear where the ideas come from, and maybe that's a good thing, that they just seem to come from out of nowhere. But I'm just going to Google A Modest Proposal right now, just to check in, make sure I'm not getting it wrong. Yes, Jonathan Swift. What does it say here? Juvenalian. I don't know why it's called that. Juvenalian satirical essay, satirical hyperbola. Let's see, sustained irony. Oh yeah, it's just about eating children, basically. That's the idea of it.
So just a coincidence then that.
Well, maybe. I mean, I might have subconsciously been ripping off Swift. I don't know.
Well, we had a couple of people asking a question regarding what was the last instrument that you may have picked up and learned and mastered since we spoke with you last.
Oh, I'm not in the habit of mastering new instruments. I mean, I learned to play the woodwinds when I was in high school, and I had already played the piano a bit. So I wouldn't say that I'm currently, I mean, I'm not really I'm not a super technical player. I mean, we have a band full of people who can really play their instruments, and I think John and I kind of feel like we're in this happy position of being the two of us are the worst musicians in our band, which is what you want to be, right? Like that's the ideal setup. You know, if you can decide, you want everyone else to be better than you. So yeah, I would say I'm kind of an amateur, self-taught woodwinds and keyboard player, and that's pretty much where it's been for me. Continuously. I did play a little bit of banjo back in the day, but I haven't picked that up in decades, I think.
Have you picked up any new kind of synthesizer or electronic something that you've been? Oh
yeah. I think did we talk about this last year? I was very keen on the. There's a Brooklyn company called Critter and Guitari, and they make these little synths. And they're very techy because they're synths that you can program. If you have a little bit of knowledge about programming, you can get inside and under the hood and do a simple form of programming using this kind of object-based language it's very similar to Max MSP. Some of your listeners might have heard of that. It's a programming language where you're dragging objects around and connecting them, and it uses that as its brain. So it's really fun. You can just kind of make up anything you want. Make it do whatever you want. Not even synthesizing, but just any kind of audio processing or MIDI processing or any of that fun stuff. So I had a period actually around the time of the pandemic when I learned Max MSP. Actually here in Scotland, I was just sitting in my shed doing tutorials, and that was really a great preparation for messing around with this little synth, the Critter and Guitari synth that I got. I hope this is not too technical for your listeners.
No.
Trust us, they find us fascinating.
Yeah, maybe even the more technical, the better.
Oh, dear.
Christopher in Indiana asks, what has been your favorite cover you have played live or in the studio, either solo or with the band?
Favorite cover. I don't know. I'm not thinking of so much the greatest cover we ever did, but there just were some funny oddball ones. John and I did a cover way back in the day before we had a record deal. We did a cover of Prince's 1999. I don't know why that's coming to mind, but the thing was that we played it really fast, and we didn't know what the words were, so we were just making up words, and we were both singing at the same time. So it was like we were not singing the same thing because we were both just improvising words. And I think the funniest part of it was, people didn't even know what song we were playing. So, but it was memorable. It was like this kind of fun. We used to goof around quite a lot back in the old days in the East Village, and that would have been one good example.
Any chance of that being saved or recorded in any way?
I doubt it.
Yeah. Because, living in Minnesota, Prince is one of our favorites.
Oh, I know, yeah.
So
yeah. Absolutely.
That if anybody's listening to this interview and has a copy of that,
I'm sure they're
please get a hold of us.
Scrambling through the archives to see if there's anything.
I'm going to say unlikely. This would have been in a small club in the East Village in the mid 1980s. I don't think anybody was recording us back then.
Sure, yeah, it was a little harder to do that without cell phones and things.
You had your little cassette recorders and things.
Yeah. If you could be in a cover band, what would it be? What band would...
Like a tribute band.
Like a tribute band. What would you be in? And do you have a name for that band?
Boy, I don't know. You're stumping me. I can't even...
You can think about that one.
I'm going to think about that. I'll tell you next time we talk.
Okay.
About that.
Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, and then you can hit the road with them.
Yes.
Tribute bands are
you're saying
all the
not
rage.
Just tell you what the hypothetical thing is, but actually commit to doing it.
Yes, exactly.
Just based on
in part 2 of the question, yes.
Bill in Pennsylvania says, looking forward to the 3-day stint in D.C. Are there pros and cons for you when you play the same city multiple nights in a row like that?
I would say they're mostly pros for us. It's very civilized to spend a night in a city and not just be traveling every single night. Because, a lot of, for example, this tour in the UK will just be packing up after the show and getting on the bus, and then everybody lays down in their bunk and we drive to the next city. And then you have to wait till we get there to have a shower or whatever. And it's not the most comfortable lifestyle. So yeah, I really I look forward to these. The other thing about the DC shows is we can just drive to them,
Oh, sure.
And then, it's just way easier. The DC and Philly and Boston and those places, we just get in our cars and hit the road, and it's very pleasant.
Well, I have a question from, and I hope I'm saying this name correctly, Kalila in Pennsylvania. Wants to know if there's a particular musical or thematic idea that has its claws in you at the moment, something that you're feeling inspired to explore.
Well, I guess I can answer that by saying I acquired this past summer. I was staying here in this flat in Scotland, and I have a shed out back because in Britain you have to have a shed. That's the thing. Like everybody, men in particular, it's like some kind of unwritten law. You have a shed. You have your place where you live, and then you go, I'm going out to the shed. So I have one. I've had it for a few years here, and this summer I just got a piano. Got a free piano that I just had it moved from a different part of town, and now that's in my shed. And the piano amazingly came with a piano bench that was stuffed full of music.
Oh, awesome.
Cool.
Which is so great. I mean, it's all, it's most of it dates from the 1950s. So it's somebody's entire pile that they were probably being fed by their piano teacher, right? So it's a lot of it is etudes and lessons and stuff like that. But there's some great, just like weirdo old piano, like classical and popular and show tunes and stuff like that. And so this week I've just been picking through the pile of music and looking at it all, and it's so great because it's it's somebody's it's a whole genre that somebody was dedicated to learning how to play, and it's just this great treasure trove for me. Like, it's just really fun to look at this weird old music that people played. I've done that in New York as well. I've collected old volumes of music that you were supposed to learn if you were, sort of like 100 years ago, if you're like a middle class, child of an aspirational family, where you're expected to, there's certain things that you're expected to do to be sort of accepted into society, I guess. And one of them was like be able to play piano when the guests come over. And so there are these whole books of all these things like Chopin and stuff like that you're supposed to, like, not complicated music, but easy enough for this young student to play. And so there's a lot of that. And there are a lot of like simplified versions of romantic pieces that were for these families, American middle-class families who are trying to demonstrate that they're cultured people,
Yep.
That's kind of the idea.
Yeah, I could totally see that in films and stuff that I've seen where you have a dinner and then you sit down and watch the little girl play the piano,
thing, and everybody's like, yeah, and it's and she's wearing a nice dress, yep. And yeah, so so there's this vast amount of this kind of old music in used bookstores and junk stores and stuff. And this piano came with this huge pile of this kind of stuff. And it was, it's really fun. It's just like a fun way to spend time, is to sift through all the stuff. For me, my idea of fun.
No, it sounds great, because it's probably like the stuff too that the family got together and sat around the piano and sang to, and
Oh yeah.
Big tradition of that.
Well, my Scottish wife has informed me that there was a tradition in Scotland which she calls Tam for a Sang, and if that's in Scots, that translates to English as time for a song.
Oh.
And so she said, so there's certain songs
that's
we'll
awesome.
hear on the radio or something, and she'll say, "Oh yeah, that's Tam for a Sang," and like the I don't know if you know that song by Manfred Mann that's Pretty Flamingo. You know that one?
I don't think I know
it's
that.
An oldie.
I don't know that.
All the guys, they walk around. She's a flamingo.
Yeah, what is that song? No, that sounds very familiar.
It's Manfred Mann.
Yeah.
Manfred Mann.
I think
anyway.
I can't believe that both you and Flansburgh brought up Manfred Mann.
That's true.
In our conversations today.
Well, we are cut from the same ancient cloth. I think we have the same kind of tedious obsessions, probably. But anyway, so that one is a Tam for a Sang.
Okay.
Category. So the family sits around, or you have a party and there's a bunch of people, and somebody starts playing that one, among other things.
If she just would, some sweet day, I'll make her mine, pretty flamingo. if she just would. Some sweet day I'll make her mine, pretty flamingo. And every guy will envy me, 'cause paradise is where I'll be. Sha-la-la, la-la-la-la, pretty flamingo. Someday I'll make her mine. Yes, I will, yes, I will, I'll make her mine.
I love that. I think there should be a They Might Be Giants songbook
Tim for a
learners. Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah. And you guys could choose which songs those would be, or maybe even come up with some piano heavy stuff
Yeah,
for the kids
that
to
would be-
play
it would be-
for the neighbors.
Sure, or just for the it would be the illustration would be like someone at the piano and then a whole bunch of slightly drunken people and family members all standing around with drinks and singing along and singing out of tune.
Well, kind of related to songs to sing along to, Pam in New York says, if you made a playlist with just songs that you really enjoy performing and not necessarily the most popular ones, what songs might you include on that list?
Oh. Well, yeah. I mean, there are a bunch that John and I just like to play that are fun to play. But I think mostly they kind of overlap pretty well with the stuff we actually do. It is really. I mean, I can't think of a good example right now, but there are songs that we haven't played in a long time, and when we pull them out, it's like kind of thrilling in a way to remember a song. And most of our guys just can, they remember. Our guys have been with us for 20 years, so they know a lot of deep catalog as well. So it is possible to just like pull something out and start playing it. Not. I mean, I think everybody looks slightly alarmed when we say, "Oh, let's play this song," and we haven't played it in like 15 years. And they're like, no, I need to go and do some private study.
Yeah,
I can't remember it. But I would say mostly these guys, so particularly Danny and Marty, they just remember everything, I think.
Yeah, that's so impressive when people can do that.
Yeah.
Because
my brain is just not, it's not robust enough to carry all that stuff around with me.
Well, kind of related to that, Caleb in California had a question saying, why was the decision made to play number 3 on the last couple of tours after not playing it live since the 80s?
That's a decision. It's funny, like when these choices get made, like I don't think we necessarily, a lot of stuff is just like, oh yeah, that'll be fun. Hold on, I've got to Google something so I can remember what the hell I'm talking about. Yeah, I mean, there is online. You can find the set list for every show we've ever done.
they might be a wiki.
And yeah, there's on the wiki is just an exhaustively, incredibly, scholarly, compilation of everything, all the set lists, all the shows, all the songs. There's also, John and I found out about this thing last year, which I think is called setlist.com or something like that.
Setlist FM.
And they also, do you know about that?
Oh, yeah.
I was really amazed because they not only have all our set lists, but they do all the statistical analysis of all of it. You can just click on which song was played the most, or what the distribution of frequencies and all this just elaborate analytical stuff. I kind of was amazed because it wasn't that website is not just about us. Obviously, it's all the bands, but they do this very, very exhaustive research and tabulation of stuff. Very impressive.
We have people do that or They Might Be Playing They Might Be Giants Day, where they'll do statistics on what album had the most requests that we played, or even more detailed than that. That is, to me, just fascinating because I don't have that kind of mind. But
I'm interested to hear that you don't, because obviously somebody does in that world. And I think we seem to attract a lot of those kind of, maybe a little bit OCD kind of people. And I recall that you had a running tab of where everybody was calling in from.
Yeah.
You probably still have that going. And a very, very impressive map on the wall of all the
we gave that
locations.
We gave that up a couple of years ago just because and this is just a total credit to your band, when you get requests from all 50 states and all 7 continents, like 3 years in a row, it's kind of like, well, we've done that.
Right, exactly. It's a map of the entire planet Earth.
Yeah.
So we're shooting for the...
I don't know what the point of this is.
We're shooting for the International Space Station.
Yeah, we've been...
And then I figured we've covered all the bases.
Yeah, and we have had people...
We talked about that.
We've had people write in and say, like, we know somebody that knows somebody in there, and they're trying to put a word in for it. But so there are people trying, but we just haven't succeeded yet.
Very good.
Yeah, I felt just good getting, like, requests from Antarctica for a bunch of years.
That was astonishing. I guess that completed the list of continents, which was great.
And one year we just wanted to get a request from France, because when we realized we'd never received a request from France in all the time that we'd been doing it, and then that came in like immediately. Just had to mention we need somebody from France, and boom, there was a request from France.
Somebody complied.
Yeah,
very nice.
Yeah, but. I think if there's a thing to be obsessed about with your band, there's somebody out there obsessing about it, which is great.
Seemingly.
Which is fantastic.
Yep. No, we as we've said over and over, we reap the benefits of the TMBG Wiki, especially as our John and I are, have imperfect memories, and we can go back and figure out what the hell we were doing in 1996 or whatever.
I like to press the button that just says, like, it's kind of like choose your own adventure, so it just takes you to a random page. I will do that every once in a while if I'm looking at it during our morning show and just see where it takes me, because it's always somewhere that I'll learn something I didn't know. Google used to do that. Way back in the day, there was a button on Google. That's right.
It said something like, it was like, to try my luck or something like that.
Yeah. I remember that. We have a question from Missouri. Nick in Missouri says that musicians like Ben Folds and Weird Al Yankovic have all done tours backed by local symphonies in various cities. Would They Might Be Giants ever consider such an endeavor?
I think, you can imagine how difficult something like that is to put together. I think it's the kind of thing where we would want it not just to be a sort of generic playing with a symphony. I mean, I know it doesn't sound very generic, but in other words, we'd want to put the care into it that sorry, someone's at the door.
Yeah, no problem.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, great. It's got a package delivered. I'm definitely into doing. But I think that the thing to make how to make it interesting, that is the problem. And I think just a straight up orchestra, maybe it doesn't. It's not enough.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like who was it? I saw somebody doing a thing with like it was like a drum and bugle corps or something. It was just it was a little bit off center in that way. It might have been Radiohead. I can't remember now. But it just had this, it was unique. It was like a individual original idea rather than just playing with a gigantic orchestra. And that appealed to me.
Okay.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of ways to play with other musicians where it feels personal and creative, and it's not just like, the London Symphony Orchestra, plays gigantic, bombastic versions of your favorite songs.
Hooked on They Might Be Giants. That's what you need to do.
Yeah, and it's got
Sure.
It's got the orchestra and then a group of people just clapping and snapping along to it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we're recording this show on October 28th, which means Halloween is right around the corner. And I was just wondering if you're a Halloween person, and if so, do you have a favorite Halloween song?
Yeah, I'm intrigued by the concept of Halloween person. I never considered myself to be that, but I guess if there is such a thing, I've spent part of my son's childhood ushering him around, and I certainly participated in Halloween when I was a kid. Yeah, Halloween's great. I'm not sure where to go with this question. Like I love that there is Halloween. Like, what a great idea for a holiday. What does it say about our species that we're attracted to sort of a kind of a bit of a death culty holiday every year, and that it's for kids, That's great. I love that. Halloween songs. I don't know. What Halloween songs do you guys into?
Well, we're all in for Halloween.
Yeah.
So
the two that come
you
to
are
mind,
Halloween people.
We are, yes. I love the Cramps, Surfin' Dead, and then we have a guy that choice. For our show. Maybe like 10, 15 years ago, he came in and surprised us with his guitar and played, it's I Will Survive, but he changed it all to like zombie survival lyrics. It's called I Will Survive the Zombie Apocalypse, and it's become this really popular song that people request every October. Those are probably my two favorite Halloween songs.
That's very good. Right.
At first I was afraid, I was terrified. Kept thinking I could never live with all those things outside. But then I spent so many nights amid the zombie throng, and I grew strong. And I learned how to get along. They say it's a plague from outer space. It brings the dead right back to life. You have to shoot them in the face. I should recheck the back lock. I should throw away the key. They might break in through the windows and try to consume me, so I'll just go board up the door. They're trying to get in and they're not living anymore. They moan and try to eat me like I'm a human pie, but I've got a chainsaw. I won't just lay down and die, oh no, not I will survive. Oh, as long as I hoard freeze-dried food, I know I'll stay alive. I have full intent to live. I know what deadly blows to give. I will survive. I will survive. Hey, hey. It took all the strength I had not to get ripped apart. Kept trying to steal guns and ammo from Walmart. I spent oh so many nights awake and trying to find a way for them to die. But now I hold their heads up high and you see me, somebody new. My yard is piled high with all the undead that I slew, and when they feel like breaking in to make a buffet out of me, I'll remove their heads, destroy their brains to an adequate degree. So now I'll go, board up the door, and fend them back now, 'cause they're not living anymore. They try to break into my house with a horde of deadly size, but I just take aim and hit them right between the eyes, and now I will survive. Well, the army isn't here yet, but I know I'll stay alive until they rescue me and rebuild society. I will survive. I will survive. Hey, hey.
Yeah, we're not
Well,
we're not so much
of the,
Monster Mash people. That's too easy.
Although no, I think the thing is, if you have kids, Monster Mash is undeniable.
Yeah.
I mean, I love it when anyone refers to Monster Mash obliquely. Somebody online was like, I think I speak for everyone when I say I was working in the lab late tonight. And there's like this weird like sidelong reference. But yeah, I'm reminded. You're putting me in mind of the Jonathan Colton song "Re Your Brains," which I suppose is a good Halloween song as well.
That's true.
We asked John Flansburgh, and he said that Marty Beller Mask is your Halloween song.
Oh, I suppose that qualifies. Yeah, that works.
I'm curious, when you're out on the road, I asked Flans if there was anything that he liked to do, because I saw that he had been posting records that he picked up at some record stores. Is there anything that you like to frequent when you're in a town and you actually have a day to spend? Yes.
If the weather's nice, and this is something we've done in Australia a lot. I mean, the last couple of weeks, that a lot of these towns have really amazing botanic gardens. And I think they're always worth checking. Even if you think, there's just going to be a bunch of plants. But then they often have just really oddball, especially in Australia, they have these really oddball, prehistoric-looking trees and things like that. Really something you would not see in your hometown, probably. So that's a fun thing. There used to be a lot more used bookshops in the world, and especially in America. It seems like over the time that we've been touring, we've seen that particular thing just kind of disappear in a lot of towns. There used to be way more used bookstores than there are now, which is kind of sad.
Yeah.
But I think it's a business that maybe is not as sustainable as it used to be. There's always museums, and there's a lot that we go back to. Actually, the one in Milwaukee is pretty fun. It's at Calatrava building, and there's museums all over the shop. London, of course, is filled with fascinating exhibits and museums.
Was there any place that you hit when you were in Minnesota for a couple of days?
That's a great question. Where did I go in Minnesota? I definitely walked around downtown a lot. And I used to, back in the day, I would wander over to like Nye's Polonaise.
Yeah.
But that's gone now.
It
Very
is.
sad.
Did you ever sing at the piano bar? Were you there enough to do some of that?
I've been there. I haven't seen the full. I think Flans was there once when there was a full-on conga line.
That sounds like nice.
But I have a good friend who was the curator at the Minnesota Historical Society for many years, and he took me to the I'm forgetting now the name of it, but it was the big flour mill on the Mississippi there.
Oh, Pillsbury.
That got turned into that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
And he was large. He had a big role in creating that exhibit. So he's very, very proud of himself.
What were some of the questions are we missing some, Tim?
Well, there's this question from Jane in Illinois that I find interesting. I love the variety you bring to your arrangements. How often do these arrangements seem to be birthed fully formed from the womb of the music muse, as opposed to something that you really need to push and pull around to bring to fruition?
Yeah, well, it's probably, evenly split. There are times for me when the arrangement drives the whole, I mean, the one that really springs to mind is we decided, John and I, to put together kind of like a half-size big band for a show in New York, in Brooklyn, at the sort of public, there's a public sort of arena, outdoor arena in the park there, so we had kind of like, I think it was like 2 trumpets, 2 trombones, 3 saxophones, kind of like a slightly shrunken big band was the idea, and I wrote the song Museum of Idiots specifically for that group, and that was really fun because I was just thinking specifically of like, how does this work with this ensemble, and it was really kind of arranged as it was being written, and that happens occasionally. That was the example that leaps to mind, and then very often we have these songs that are sort of skeletal, and the arrangement is created after the fact. And often, it'll often be a kind of interesting surprise where it goes, because you can really amp something up a lot after you've already kind of figured it out. Do you know there's a film of the Rolling Stones creating the arrangement for Sympathy for the Devil?
Yeah.
It was filmed by Jean-Luc Godard.
Right.
And you get to see the whole process where they're starting out, it's a very ordinary arrangement, and then they gradually come up with this much more complicated idea for it, with the chanting and all this stuff. But it's obviously, they have all this freedom to just hang out in the studio. They're probably spending a fortune in the studio, just, with all the musicians sitting around, as they kind of, gradually come up with this idea, which Sean and I are way too uptight to actually do. We don't do that kind of thing in the studio. We try and come up with our ideas at home. Oh, but here's an example. Dr. Worm was originally more of a rock song, with just a simple rock band arrangement, and I demoed it and we recorded it, and then there was this feeling like we could make this song sound kind of more big in some way, and eventually what that led to was adding this whole horn arrangement, which included Mark Pender playing his terrific trumpet, super high notes, and and so that actually Dr. Worm, I think, went through at least 3 versions. Really starting out much more simply before it got to the final version.
Here we go. This song is called Dr. Worm.
I
So if you guys like to bring stuff in, has there ever been a song though that came out of just improving things in the studio and like catching something and
yeah, well, I mean, there was one in particular, and it was because we were working with the late Adam Schlesinger, who produced a bunch of tracks on the Mink Carr album. And he was in the control room doing a lot of technical stuff. And John and I had, we sat and worked with him, but then at a certain point it was like, all right, we're just going to go into the live room while you do this thing you're doing. We'll just go in there and goof around. And John and I, this was a very unusual thing, but we sat down together at the piano and wrote the song Mink Carr. We had the title for the album, and we were like, all right, let's write the theme song. And we like I said, we're normally kind of uptight about trying to write and arrange things in the studio, but we actually did come up with the entire thing together in the studio while other work was, I suppose, the other work was getting done, so we didn't feel like, oh, we're wasting everyone's time, because that's sort of maybe that's sort of the feeling that we would normally have of like people are sitting around watching us while we're we're casting about for some ideas. But yeah, so that was really fun. We did like an old fashioned songwriting duo thing of, sitting at the piano and making up a song from scratch.
Yeah. I have you ever, we were talking with, John earlier, and he was mentioning some of the songs that you do improv, and you have the hand signals to signify that this is the way to go. Have you ever improv something where you're like, wow, I really probably should have added it into the song this way? Has that ever happened, and then you end up doing some more of that kind of thing?
Well, as you suggested, we have this part of the song Spy that's all improvised entirely, and it's all hand signals. And that is, I would say, still one of my favorite parts of the whole night. It is really fun and really nerve-wracking and exciting because you're trying to steer this crazy group of people and come up with something that's coherent, but it's all done with hand signals, and when it works, it's really fun and exciting. But that is the nature of it. There's no way to codify it. Like, I don't think it would ever work to try and take that idea and then make a fixed composition, because that's not the nature of it. It's all about improvisation. And really making the whole arrangement up on the spot.
Have you ever heard of the musician Jandek at all?
Jandek, no. About Jandek.
There was a documentary made on him, but for a long time he was a mysterious person who just put out his own music, but nobody knew who it was, and it's very outsider music. But
kind of otherworldly, haunting, improvised
Sometimes
stuff.
it would just be him on a guitar that maybe he doesn't really know how to play, and or a piano other times, or it would just be a cappella sometimes.
Right.
Right. But then he ended up coming, like the world got to know who he was, and he's still pretty mysterious, but the way that he works, and we were fortunate enough that he came to Minnesota, and we've done a couple shows with him. But what he does is say, for this show, I want for the Mankato show, he wanted a French horn, a guitar, drums, and he would be on piano. Mm-hmm. And then the musicians. So we got those musicians. They met the day before the show. He spoke with them for a little bit. And then they kind of just, they were at their instruments, but they didn't really do anything. And then the show is the first time that they really sit down and make music. So there's nothing prepared other than his directions. And that's what comes of it. And that's the way that he works.
Yeah.
Would you ever,
that's great.
Do you think you could ever do anything like that? Or
well, I think that would be, obviously a step farther in the direction that we're going in with the spy improvisation. But yeah, I mean, I love that kind of thing. I remember seeing David Thomas, who had the band Pere Ubu,
mm-hmm.
And he did a show I'll never forget that was just him and a cellist and a percussionist. And the whole night, the whole show was him just kind of waving his arms around, and they were trying to figure out what he wanted, and just playing stuff, that wasn't pre-planned in any way. And then he's a very interesting, engaging performer.
Yeah.
He sang, he had prepared songs, but it was over this somewhat chaotic improvisation that these other two people were doing, and it was really good. I mean, it was a great show. It was really, kind of like watching any improv, like an improv troupe, that it's all happening live, and that it's a one of a kind performance. And so when it succeeds, it's really exciting.
We can't deny there's spirits in this house. You shut the door, the wind closes to dark laugh. You smile and think about it. You'll come again. I'm sure you can't refuse. Your spirit's here, laying on a white table. I can see it gleam. It is sparkling in the sun. Leave this room and lock the key. Someday I will. please come back. I don't know what to do. Come back, oh please come back. Come back, oh please.
I'm a musician. I could never imagine getting on a stage and just going, all right, what am I going to play? I don't know.
No, I mean, I think you have to let go of some of your sense of like, what anything's supposed to be. You have to actually make a sound of some kind, and then so it comes down to like, well, okay, what's it going to be? So what's the name of the guy you're talking about? Jandek?
Jandek. Yep, Jandek.
E-K.
And he self-releases everything. Like, what would you recommend for a good starting album? The Atlanta?
The Atlanta show is really good because he started putting out his live performances as finished works, and results may vary obviously with something like this.
Yeah,
but some of them are just breathtaking. That Atlanta show is really good. As far as like his deeper albums, I really like the is it You Walk Alone?
Yeah.
Album. That's a great one. It's just it's a little more musical than some of his earlier stuff, which is more like a haunted phantom in a dark room kind of music. But if the Mankato show ever comes out,
which is a great genre.
If the Mankato show ever comes out, one of the greatest nights of music I've ever heard.
Yep. Yeah. It just. Yeah, it was amazing. But
that's great. Yeah. No, as I said, like part of what's exciting is that it's being created right in front of you.
Yeah.
And that's cool. I know. I will check him out. For some reason, this is reminding me of a thing which is not quite the same idea. But there's this guy, I think he's a Scandinavian person, and I don't even know what his name is, but he has an Instagram under The Vape Noise, and he does these really odd, one of the things he does is all these AI sort of horror movies, which is just, in connection with the music that he makes. But a lot of the music is...
Somebody was just telling me about this. Yeah.
Yeah. He takes kind of scraps of metal and motors and, a lot of metallic things, but other materials as well. And he just makes these little machines that go off and do chaotic...
He did the soundtrack to The Witch with that. Machine.
Oh, okay.
He built
the Hereditary soundtrack too,
and maybe that too.
That stuff's terrifying.
And you can see those machines that he makes.
Right. Yeah.
So crazy.
Well, on the Instagram, he'll film the machine itself, and it's often just like a thing that's thrashing around on the floor, or several things like with motors, and just they look like they're trying to self-destruct. And then he participates. He'll kind of be in amongst all the chaos himself. And it's basically noise music, but it's very very homemade in the best way.
I had no idea he had an Instagram. I'm totally gonna look that up.
Yeah, the vape noise, and he's done a ton of YouTube videos as well. So there's a lot of stuff out there by this guy.
Oh, I love it. Well, we're getting close to an hour, and so we have to ask you our favorite question.
Yes.
And you probably know what that is, but what books have
I been reading?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, all right. I was prepared this year again.
You
for
always
that question. So right now, I'm in the middle of reading this great book by Naomi Klein, and she is a social critic and essayist, and she had this unfortunate problem in the last little while, which is that she was very often confused with another woman whose name is Naomi Wolf. Naomi Wolf wrote a feminist, very popular feminist book called The Beauty Myth many years ago. But what's happened since then is that Naomi Wolf has become a sort of anti-vax conspiracy theorist.
Oh boy!
And then, whereas Naomi Klein is not buying any of that stuff, but unfortunately, people get them mixed up. So Naomi Klein is continually getting this hate mail from people, or supportive mail, thinking that she's the other Naomi, and it's a really complicated problem that she's. It sounds like, oh well, you could just clear up the mistake, but it's obviously on social media and stuff. It's very hard once something like that is set into motion to fix it. So she's having to confront the fact that everybody thinks she's this other woman, and she's written a book about it called Doppelganger, which is great. I'm really enjoying it. It's just it's kind of hilarious and it's kind of awful, but she gets to talk about her own cultural theories and she talks a lot about capitalism and authoritarianism and things like that, which some of which overlaps with the other Naomi, but she is really needing to stress the fact that she's not a conspiracy theorist and doesn't believe a lot of the much more outside stuff that Naomi Wolf believes. So that's a great book. I recommend it. Although you can actually just read the article about it if you just want to know what's going on.
Yellow book
I
version.
finished reading another Zadie Smith book called Fraud, which I really enjoyed. And it's a little bit like Zadie Smith doing like a dad book in a way, because it's historical fiction, which is not her usual thing. But she wrote a whole book about this very weird trial that took place in the 19th century, where there was someone who was posing as a long missing member of the nobility, and to most people, who paying attention, it just seemed preposterous, because he was clearly a working class guy who was claiming to be this lost aristocrat who'd been lost at sea. But it brought up all this class, all these class issues, and so the fictional story is based partly on factual, historical factual things. And it's a great novel. I mean, she's a wonderful writer, when she's writing about contemporary stuff, but this is a really kind of an interesting turn for her, because it's all taking place in the mid-19th century. And she brings in people like Charles Dickens, who she has a kind of a bone to pick with. It's just a lot of funny literary intrigue and just a lot of social issues from 175 years ago that are it's great. I really enjoyed it. So that was Fraud by Zadie Smith. Go back to my list and see what else there is here. I started reading the Kathleen Hanna biography, but I actually just read the sample part of it, so I haven't purchased it yet. But that might be another one on my list. Rebel Girl.
Okay.
Kathleen Hanna. You know who she is.
Yeah.
Yep.
Bikini Kill.
And that's she's a good writer. She's got a unique story to tell, and looking forward to that.
Will there ever be a John Linnell autobiography?
Probably not.
Okay.
Well, I can tell you, if you ever were to write that music book that was brought up a few years ago, people are still waiting for it.
Oh yeah. Well, I think that maybe the thing to do would be to just make up a lot of stuff and not tell the truth, and that would be a more interesting book. But I have to get to work on that.
Well, you've got quite a bit on your plate, though. So priorities.
I'm good. It's all good.
Well, we can't thank you enough for joining us, and safe travels on the tour. And I hope that you can get your days and nights back in place in time for all the shows.
I'm optimistic. I think managed to handle this particular trip. I planned ahead, and we're down. We're going to be down in Southampton in about, I think, 5 or 6 days. So I should be all completely ready to go by then.
We did kind of a Minnesota goodbye after that. So
yeah.
There wasn't necessarily a good place to say goodbye to John Linnell.
There's just 10 more minutes of us going, well, I suppose.
Yeah, I know. You be safe now.
Yep.
Did you want some leftovers? Yeah. But let me do this quick. You are listening to local independent public radio, The Maverick, KMSU FM NHD Mankato, KMSK Austin, broadcasting from the campus of Minnesota State University, Mankato. Big ideas, real world thinking.